This is the METS POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The New York Mets lost another series, and it was a familiar script. Some poor starting pitching and some struggles to hit against the worst bullpen in the sport. Welcome into the Mets Postcast here live on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel. You can listen to us in the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I'm your postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Met game throughout the course of the season, and a tough one for the Mets. Not even sure where to really begin because there is a lot of blame to go around for this one. And I think the place that I want to start is with one word: unacceptable.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Not just today, but this series as a whole is just unacceptable for the New York Mets at this time of year. Barely holding on to the final wild card spot in the National League, barely in a playoff position, holding on for dear life, and playing the worst team in the NL East, the Washington Nationals, with the worst bullpen in the sport. And you run Mackenzie Gore out of this game after, 4 1/3 innings. So they needed 4 2/3 worth of bullpen work for a bullpen that, just read off of the Fangraphs page where this Washington Nationals relief pitching unit ranks this season. And sorry if it's going to sound like a lot of bad numbers, but that's just the reality. 30th in ERA, 30th in WHIP, 26th in walks per 9, 26th in strikeouts per 9, 29th in hits per 9, 28th in home runs per 9. This is a bullpen that is very bad. It is the worst bullpen by ERA in the sport. And the Mets, over the course of 2 games, had 2 hits against this group. Today, 1 hit, that Lindor single in the 9th inning. That was it. If this team wants to be taken seriously, forget making a run in October. Forget that. If they want to be in October, if they want to be one of the 6 teams that makes the postseason, you cannot lose series to the Washington Nationals. I know many looked at this series as a must sweep. I know Ryan asked that question earlier this week on the pod. I think it's a little unfair to say that you have to sweep a series against the team. It's baseball. Things are going to happen, but you assume the Mets were going to win this series. You assume after they win the first game the way that they did, played about as best of a game as they could have, getting good starting pitching from David Peterson, good night offensively, that they could win one of the next 2 games to make sure that they got the series win going into this series against the weekend against Atlanta, and they couldn't do that. They couldn't crack a bullpen that ranked last in the sport in ERA, and it's just unacceptable. You can't have this in April or May or June, but you certainly can't have it in August when the Reds are breathing down your neck. The Phillies are widening the gap to past the point of no return. I mean, the division is about to just flash right in front of the Mets' eyes. And it was just a disappointing performance all across the board. And the offense deserves blame as well. I think yesterday when we were talking about Kodai Senga struggling, the offense kind of didn't get a lot of my criticism because Kodai Senga dug this team a hole. They were down early and they needed to battle back, and they had a mini rally there in the 6th inning when they put 3 runs on the board. Today, they spotted Sean Manaea a 3-0 lead. Francisco Lindor, for the 8th time this season, a new Mets franchise record, hit a leadoff home run. The Mets jumped out to a 3-0 lead in this game, and they weren't able to hold it because the Mets now have pitching problems once again. We had a brief little 3-game stretch, the last 2 games against Seattle, and the first game of this series against Washington, where you felt like the starting pitching had stabilized a little bit. And over the last 2 games, we have been reminded of the struggles that this team is going through. And so this team isn't back. I know maybe we thought it for 3 games when they had that nice 3-game winning streak, but they are right back to being the team that they were before this. Not getting good quality starting pitching, the bats going missing. And look, I know they didn't have Jeff McNeil today, except for a pinch hit spot late in the game. I know they didn't have Brandon Nimmo in this game, and who knows when he'll be able to return to the lineup. But there's enough good bats in this lineup to where they should have been able to crack this Nationals bullpen. And they didn't yesterday, and they certainly did it today. And it is just frustrating and unacceptable. And this is just not a playoff team right now. And truthfully, they haven't been a playoff team for a little bit, and they are just running out of time. 35 games after today for the Mets, a series starting this weekend against the Atlanta Braves, 7 more this year against the Phillies. 16 of the 25 games that they're going to play in the month of September are against teams with winning records. I mean, it doesn't get any easier for the Mets. This is one of those series that you circle on the calendar of a get-right series, the momentum carrying over from beating the Seattle Mariners for 2 straight games, and they couldn't do it, and they looked like they were missing energy today. They just looked like the moment they went down, the moment that Manaea gave it up, the moment that Rogers gave it up, the moment that this team was behind, they didn't have it, and they just folded. And there have been too many occasions like that this season where they have folded. We'll dive into Sean Manaea's start here a little bit more in depth. Followed a very similar script to Kodai Senga in his start last night. A little more on the offense, the stuff to keep an eye on, and we'll try to get you ready for this series against the Atlanta Braves over the weekend. Your thoughts always welcome here on the Mets Postcast. We'll get to all of it here on the other side. Most people, they can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that maybe you're not saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover those forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or you just need that little extra push to power you through the day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and it ends October 31st, 2025. Back here on the Mets Postcast, the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, and the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Chris Schubert here with you, recapping the Mets falling 9-3 to the Washington Nationals, dropping the series. And I feel like I'm repeating myself. And perhaps I need to come up with new words to describe this, but it's just the same stuff we've been seeing from this team really since after the All-Star break. Starting pitching, just woefully inconsistent. And Sean Manaea today had a really solid start. It was elevating that sinker, had that sweeper going down and into the right-handed batters. He was racking up the strikeouts early, was keeping a low pitch count through the first 3 innings. You felt like, okay, he had been saying a lot after his starts that he feels like he's right there. He feels like he is all the way back, and just the results haven't matched. And through the first 3 innings today, kind of started to believe Sean Manaea with what he'd been saying, because at some point your results are going to speak for themselves. You can tell me that You feel like you're turning a corner. You feel like you're right there. But if the results, my eyeballs aren't matching that, then your words are empty. But for the first 3 innings, it felt like that was the case. But as has been the norm for Mets starters, that 4th inning has been an absolute nightmare. And it was once again for the Mets in this one and for Sean Manaea, and that is where things went off the rails. And look, the Mets are not going to go anywhere if they're going to get these types of starts from Sean Manaea. They're not going to go anywhere if they're getting the starts they got last night from Kodai Senga. This team just cannot win with this type of starting pitching. It's just not going to work. They're not going to have enough leads in games to win. We know that their inability to win and come back after trailing through 8 innings. This team has to get up in front early. They need quality starting pitching, and they need to hand it off to the bullpen. And even then, it has been a question mark at times this season, and they need more. This team is not going to get to October. They're not going to go deep in October if Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga look the way they did the last 2 nights. And Manaea today, again, great start. First 3 innings looked really good, striking out a bunch of guys. And then it just goes off the rails. And yeah, I mean, the defense didn't help. Pete Alonso made a weird play, throwing the ball to second when it was 3-1 instead of going to first. Runner was safe. That let an inning spiral on Sean Manaea, but Manaea just needs to execute better. He hit a couple of batters. He had a strikeout, and the ball gets away, and that extends the inning, right? That puts a base runner on, and so now you're dealing with base traffic. So did Manaea do it to himself? Did he not have some help from behind him? Yeah, it was just a combined effort that led to the Nationals coming back to this game. But my frustration is more with an offense not cracking through against the worst bullpen in the sport. They need better starting pitching, but you would expect this to be the game where you could pick up your starter against a bullpen who needed to get 4 2/3, and instead all you muster up is 1 hit. And we can talk about the lineup, but with no Nimmo, with no McNeil, Cedric Mullins has been struggling ever since he got here. Hayden Senger is not going to wow anybody with his bat. He is just there to give Luis Torrens a day off after getting beat up. So you're not getting anything there. Tyrone Taylor is in the game because Jeff McNeil needed a day and Brendan Nimmo needed a day, and Tyrone Taylor has been struggling. So you're basically giving up 3 spots of your order. And I know Beatty and Vientos have been playing great, but you basically had 3 holes in your lineup today, and that's just not going to work. It's not sustainable, and the Mets had that problem here today. Stuff to keep an eye on. We mentioned it, Lindor setting a new Mets franchise record, 8th game this season with the leadoff home run, passing Curtis Granderson, who did it 2 times previously in 2015 and 2016. And we can talk about Ryan Stanek, and he's struggled against Washington in particular, and he struggled here again, serving up the home run that blew the game open for James Wood and the Washington Nationals. And it certainly does feel like we are getting towards the end of the Ryan Stanek experience here for the Mets. They're going to need a 6th starter on Monday. I wonder if a DFA of Stanek is going to be able to be the move that opens it up for maybe a Brandon Sproat to come up and make that start on Monday. Stanek just isn't a reliable member of this bullpen anymore, and I just don't see a world where even if they kept him around, he's going to be one of the trusted option. I mean, these are the roles that he's going to find himself in. The Mets down a couple of runs, and that's the leverage that they're going to put him in. And even then, he is unable to keep the game close. I mean, Ricardo asks, what is Mendoza's love affair with Stanek? And I tend to like the stuff profile for Stanek. I mean, he has struggled specifically against DC. I have joked that I did not want to see him at all in this series against Washington because the last time he was here, he had those 2 blown leads early on in the season back in April. And it just feels like they got really good stuff from Stanek in the postseason last year. They wanted to run it back with him as a trusted member of this bullpen, somebody that they knew they could count on, and he just hasn't been that for them this season. And it's hard to just give up on somebody that throws that hard, right? Somebody who throws 100 at the top end, you like to keep those guys around because that type of stuff does play when it's on. The unfortunate part for Ryan Stanek is it has been on less often than it was last season, more so in the postseason because Stanek wasn't very good when he first got over here after he was acquired at the deadline. Just a bad one for the Mets, just a bad one across the board. And you have questions about when will McNeil be able to get back into the lineup, worries about how he can field. So is he going to have to be, just pinned to the DH spot when he is in there? How long is it going to take for Brendan Nimmo and his neck? They don't feel great about where he's at. It may take a little bit longer, it may take another 24, 48 hours, maybe of the weekend. So the Mets have some question marks in their lineup, and I don't know if they need an IL stint, who they would even call up right now. It's not like anybody down there is going to give you confidence. I love Luis Angel Acuna more than anybody else, but he's not going to provide a spark offensively. Jared Young's not going to provide a spark offensively. And I just don't know if the Mets are going to feel comfortable, calling up a Jet Williams or a Clifford or a Carson Benj and really kind of fast tracking a bat if they needed to put somebody on the IL. It just doesn't feel like something that David Stearns and the Mets would do. And it's just a lot of pressure to put on a kid if they were even entertaining something like that, right? I love Jet Williams. I love Carson Benj, and I think they're going to be superstars here for this team based on what they're doing in the minors. I mean, they just profile as guys that could help this team. But it's just not like the Mets are going to call any of those players up at any point between now and the rest of the season. And it's going to be fair to those guys to be able to help this team. And I see James saying that Benj is on the IL. And I just mean at any point here down the stretch, it's just an unfair situation to put any of those kids in, to call them up if they need to try to help themselves offensively here down the stretch. It's just an unfair thing to do. So they're just going to have to do it with these guys. It's probably going to be more playing time for Starlin Marte in some capacity. And he was in the 3 spot today and just had some bad at bats. I know he hit the home run as well. But it just, that feels like what they're going to do here the rest of the way. Is they're just going to rely on maybe Mauricio playing some more, Marte drawing in there more. You're locking Beatty and Vientos into the lineup, but just a rough day across the board for the Mets, not being able to crack through against this bad Nationals bullpen, and another day where they get a bad start from their starter. And the team just needs more. They need more from their offense in spots like this, and they need more from their starters. They are not, let me just make it abundantly clear. If this is the way this is going to go when Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea take the mound for this team, the rest of the way, they will not make the postseason. By the end of this weekend, the Reds will have taken over that spot from the Mets for the third and final wild card spot. They just cannot afford to have this type of pitching the rest of the way. So it's just, it needs to be better. And it is well past time for us to be saying that. It is August. It is about to be September here in a couple of days, 10 days away from it being the 31st, 11 days away from it being September. They need better, or else they are going to be not just allowing the Phillies to run away and hide with the NL East, but they are going to allow the Reds to open up a sizable gap here in this wild card race. And I know the Reds have a tough schedule, but if the Mets are going to continue to play this way against Washington, what's it going to look like when they play Philadelphia? What's it going to look like this weekend when they play Atlanta? You can't take anything for granted for this team right now, and so it needs to be better. And hopefully it can be better tomorrow with Nolan McLean on the mound for the Mets in the opener of a 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves. We will be right here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and the Locked On Mets podcast feed to break it all down. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so that you are notified when we go live after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. But that is going to do it for us here. A disappointing one for the Mets. Struggles on the mound for Sean Manaea continued. Struggles for the Mets bats against this Nationals bullpen, and an unacceptable series loss to the worst team in the National League East. We're back again tomorrow to break down the opener, recap the opener of this series against the Atlanta Braves. Until then, have a good one, Mets fans.